Okay, this January 17, 2018 meeting of the Oyster River Cooperative School Board will come to order. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda, and I would like to suggest that we move the discussion item for football right up to after the approval of the minutes. That way we can get it done earlier, because I think that's where people are here for. Other changes? No? So with that change, could I ask for a motion to approve the minutes? Denise?
I motion to approve the agenda.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the agenda with the change that you suggested.
Moved by Denise. Is there a second? Second by Dan.
Discussion. I oppose doing that. I think we have incredible amount of business to do as a school board. We've had it meeting after meeting. The amount of time I have spent dealing with football and how that has become a priority as opposed to education, to me, is appalling. And I would like to leave football where it is, and we could hear from our administrators who work hard every day serving every single kid in the district, and not make football a priority over our administrators.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second, right? All those in favor of the agenda with that change, please raise your hand.
I think I just get it done.
5 in favor, all opposed. 1 opposed. The agenda is approved with that change. Public comment, I need a show of hands. How many people would like to speak? Denise, if you could.
Yeah, just like there's only like 3, it looks like 3 or 4. Oh, all right, more, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6?
Okay. So 3 minutes. Hold yourself to 3 minutes. We'll be timing it. And who wants to get started? Bob?
Bob Bartley. I want to clarify the statement I made a week ago at the football informational hearing, for which the board should be commended. I meant to convey that I favored the current proposal at this time, not because it is a good idea, indeed, it is an awful idea, but because the alternative has become marginally worse and will continue to propagate a never-ending wave of angry parents, some threatening both the board and the likes of me, as well as a bunch of neat kids who feel we have ruined their lives forever. Besides, I admit, it should not be up to me to regulate parental decisions, no matter how abusive and immoral I may feel them to be, as long as they are legal and not supported by my tax dollars. Were I on the board, I would hold my nose, beg forgiveness from whatever deity I believed in, and vote for the proposal. I would hope it would not wind up on any warrant article for or against. That said, as a physician and a citizen who cares about the health of kids' brains, I'll continue to rant and educate in hopes of convincing just one parent or player that contact football is far more deadly to kids' brains than any other sport, with the exception of boxing. Parents and players might want to go online and read a couple of the review articles on the role of tau proteins and an autoimmune response that destroys brain cells. Check out MRI images showing the changes in the brains of 8 to 12-year-olds over a single season, none of whom had concussion. I interpreted MRI for a living and cannot imagine any sane parent wanting these kinds of changes in their kids' brains. Unfortunately, some will already have them. Football is a fantastic, addictive spectator sport, perhaps the best. 2,000 years ago in Rome, the best spectator sport was feeding Christians to the lions in the Colosseum. Great for the spectators and the lions, but the welfare of the Christians has got to be held in question. I sincerely wish all players and families only the best, and hope that all the mounting damning evidence from medical science is proven wrong. Unfortunately, it rarely is. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Next.
Jeff Butts from Lee. assuming that the board goes ahead and does approve our participation with one of these host schools. I wanted to give a little information. I have coached in the youth ranks here at Oyster River for the last 6 years. We have been involved with both programs with Dover and Portsmouth. I'm more familiar with Coach Pafford than I am the coaches in Dover. I believe that the overall philosophy in the Portsmouth program would be a better fit for our kids. Portsmouth has already reached out to us before as well, so they're not a new participant at the table, if you will. They've asked before for this agreement. I think it would be in our best interest to pursue the agreement with Portsmouth if the board feels that that's a direction that we want to go in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is James Bigwither. I'm in Lee, New Hampshire. Just like to thank the board again for taking the time to consider supporting a youth football program for the Oyster River community. I also like to thank the community, both those for football and those that voiced their concerns, for the good discussion and open dialogue. I think the main thing in front of us today is that we have an opportunity to support our kids with a choice. We're not forcing anybody to play football, but we're allowing people to have that opportunity should they decide to move forward with that. This is a great opportunity, whether it be Dover or Portsmouth, and I think that's a great thing that we have in front of us. I hope that the board continues with the opportunity that's in front of us and chooses to proceed with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Jones. I'm from Durham. I also appreciate the board considering this motion or proposition that's in front of you tonight. It's been evidently Durham or Oyster River Cooperative School District has been against football for a very, very long time. And hearing the comments from one participant of the community, I can understand why. You know, we as parents are not immoral, we're not abusive, we love our children. We also believe that football is not a sport that's going to cause my child to have brain damage. It's not a sport that's going to cause my child to be a psychopath. So, you know, in a part of the country that legalizes recreational marijuana, I think football is a minor issue to allow our children to play, knowing that one day they could grow up and smoke marijuana if they so choose, whether it's Massachusetts, Maine. I understand Vermont is considering not even putting it to a vote, but just letting the governor decide. You know, fortunately, New Hampshire has not approved it yet, but I think it's a matter of time. So I'm new to the area. I've told you that numerous times. I have no preference for Dover or Portsmouth. I have spoken with my son, who is a rising 9th grader, and his preference would be to get to play football at Portsmouth. So the reason I'm here is not so I can play football, not so I can make a choice on where my son plays, but so that he can continue to enjoy a sport that he's played since 5. He's an A student. He's a musician. He's an extremely bright child, and I don't see that football is going to prevent him from continuing either his academic achievements, his musical achievements, or his athletic achievements. So, again, I want to thank the board. You're all bright men and women. You have the community's best interest at heart, but you also should have the children in the school district's desires and their ability to achieve, you know, in the areas that they have interests, not where you have interests. So with that saying, I appreciate and recommend to the board that you approve this motion in front of you, and my recommendation would be for the Portsmouth School District football program. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no particular preference between Dover and Portsmouth. I think they were both good, and I appreciated both of their coaches coming. I just hope that we can get this football thing behind us and give the people an opportunity. The point I want to make very, very clear, that the students an opportunity to play, is that there's a big, big difference between high school football and college football, and even a bigger difference between high school football and professional football. At the high school level that I played at, it's not a problem. And all I had was a leather helmet. And they've come a whole lot more better, further with helmets, and also with their coaching and practices. And so I hope this passes, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Hi, I'm Brenda Warden from Lee. I'm not speaking about football. In September, I came and spoke to you about the unified coach being or not being paid, and that was during the soccer season. And I see on tonight's agenda that you plan to review the spring coaches. And I ask that you reconsider that list and add the unified coach, the unified basketball coach, onto it. Unified is a varsity sport, and I would argue that Coach Satterfield has more responsibility than that of most coaches combined, given the complexities of needs that are represented on that team. I consider this an equity issue, and I feel that he needs to be paid just like all of the other varsity and junior varsity and assistant coaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda. Further comment?
Hi, I'm Dean Rubine from Lee. I just wanted to thank the board and the superintendent for the text telling us to all come out tonight. But I think, given the weather, we might want to stick to the rule that if there's no school, we may want to skip the board meeting.
Okay. Further comment? Could I have a motion to approve the January 3rd, 2018 regular minutes? Brian?
Motion to approve January 3rd, 2018 regular meeting minutes.
Is there a second? Second by Denise. The corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the January 3rd minutes, raise your hand. Seven in favor, the student rep in favor. Could I have a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes?
Brian.
Brian?
Motion to approve non-public meeting minutes from 1/3/18.
Moved by Brian. Is there a second? Second by Denise. Discussion on those? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in favor. Those minutes are approved. Okay. Move to the discussion item with football. It seems to me that there are two decisions we need to make, and that might be consecutive motions. One, do we move forward with the cooperative football agreement? If the answer is no, then to determine which program doesn't make any sense. It's a moot point. But if the answer is yes, then to move forward to a second motion to either one or the other, to approve one or the other as the cooperative agreement. So does that make sense to people? It seems to me that's the logical progression. So I'm wondering if we could have a motion to move forward with a cooperative football agreement. Brian?
Make a motion to move forward, direct the athletic director to enter into and the district to enter into a cooperative football agreement.
Moved by Brian. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Second by Dan. Okay, that's open for discussion now. You can start it out?
I can. I mean, I think I've talked about this a lot. My thought is that once the communities and the parents work together to start and to build a feeder program, that it really set into motion, how can you continue football? And I think in terms of the safety, I think hearing from the coaches, hearing from the parents, I think they've done pretty much everything they could at ORYA to try to have excellent coaching and to mitigate what injury could occur. So I think, you know, I said before that I didn't think that Oyster River could viably have a football team, and I still think that's true. We just don't have the numbers. And in terms of football, having enough numbers in order to have the appropriate levels, and this actually is the same conversation that we had with hockey, when we talked about why we had a cooperative agreement. And so I think that the cooperative agreement allows you to not have that problem. You have a high enough number of numbers that you could have multiple levels, and it allows kids to play at their appropriate level. So I think that it's met every hurdle that we've asked it to in terms of Title IX, in terms of money, everything else. So I just think it's the way to go. I don't know what football's future is. I'm sure changes will occur as research comes, and I'm sure that the playing will adapt to it, but I think that it's just a fair way to go. And I think that it's a 2-year agreement. Each 2 years we can look at it, and that means if whoever we pick isn't the appropriate one, we'll always have an opportunity to change it. But I just think again, it's past the hurdle of what it needs to.
Yeah. Denise?
Yeah, I agree with what Al has to say. And I think for me, the fact that we're approving this, it is a 2-year agreement. So, if there are things that come up that are very troubling, whether it's, additional research or just other aspects that perhaps we didn't foresee, it's not like we're saying we're approving this forever. I mean, hopefully it'll work, everything will go really well, and then we can just continue it as we have done with the hockey. And certainly hockey, the cooperative hockey agreement with Portsmouth has gone, from what I've heard, everything I've heard has gone extremely well. So hopefully football would go in the same vein. But for me, I can support this because I know that if at some point there's something that says, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't working, we do have an out. So that, for me, is what makes the difference, so.
Ben?
I agree with what you've both said so far. I think, for me, the critical issue is, we've heard the concerns about safety. I've never had any question about, the type of program, the type of coaching, the type of play. I do take the safety concerns very seriously. However, there's no real consensus on that yet. I think we're still very early in learning about what that is. It may turn out to be less than we fear. It may substantiate. I keep going back to this is a pretty big issue. This is not an issue for the Oyster River School Board to be passing judgment on. So I like to think of us taking our lead from experts on things like this, and when there is a lack of clarity, I'm going to default to what we know, which is this is still a sanctioned sport. And to me, one of the most critical issues is that our 3 towns have, for the past, I believe, 8 years or so, been funding and supporting a homegrown youth football program. So that, to me, is an indication that on some level, our community does, in fact, support football. So that, all of those reasons, and probably most importantly, the kids who continue to come to us, we continue to hear about, how meaningful it is to them. It's extremely compelling, and I really feel for them. And I feel for those who have reached, 9th grade and not had the opportunity to continue playing a sport that they love. I hope that we'll be able to stop that cycle tonight if we do pass this, but I do support it. And like Denise said, as we learn, we review everything we do. And, football is no exception. We spent a lot of time talking about start time last year, and we made some changes based on what we learned about that. So, I think that's our role, is to review everything we do all the time. When knowledge changes, we adapt.
Thank you, Dan. Brad?
Well, I supported this from the beginning, but, you see what a little bit of motion what it can create. And a lot of the parents that are here tonight have been coming here and came to the public forum, which I thought was a great show of the support that this has versus the people that are against it. if they put in half the effort to this program as they put into getting us to this point, I think this is going to succeed. And, and that's kind of exciting to see that, because we haven't had a lot of, motion creates emotion, type of activity in the last a couple years that I could see. So I would support this program because, honestly, I think it's good for the kids. All the questions we've had as a board have been answered satisfactorily. And the important part, as far as not being a cost to the district, we have 2 great programs to choose from. There's a lot of schools out there that would really like to have that opportunity that we have today. And that's why I think we as a board think positively on this, and I'm hoping we can pass it. So I'm hoping we can vote.
Right, Mike, you want to? No? Okay. I'm going to support this motion, and my thinking has evolved over the course of this year, and I think that about a month ago I was thinking like there's no reason not to vote for it, kind of a negative yes in a sense. And I think that over the past month it's become a positive yes. I think this is an advantage to our district to have this. It's an advantage to have this option for kids that in the fall when you have golf, you have soccer, and you have cross-country, and there's certain kids that those aren't the sports that are right for. And I think that to be idle for a season, to not be able to play the sport you want to play, I think creates other dangers for your kid, frankly. I think that's respectful of the vote last March, which I think indicated that I don't think this district is ready once a football program in Oyster River. I think it's a wonderful compromise. I know it's not exactly what the football parents want, but I think it's a way forward and gives kids an option to play football. And I think it's not just something where there's no reason not to vote for it. I think there are positive reasons to vote for it, because I think it'll give kids the option that they want. And having seen the support of the parents, and I'd just like to thank all of you for being such vocal and articulate advocates for your sport. I think that support is just going to make this work. So I'm in favor. So we're to vote. Okay. The motion is to move forward with the cooperative football agreement. All those in favor, please raise your hands. 6 in favor, none opposed, and the student rep is in favor. So we have a motion to move forward with the cooperative football agreement. The next question is it, we have 2 options, 2 schools that have expressed interest, Dover and Portsmouth. And I know, Andy, is you here? Okay. You had some information you wanted to share with us, and I think, because I think the athletic director couldn't be here. Yeah. Okay. If you want to just share that.
I just want to preface this by saying that I have no lean one way or the other. I just wanted to pass along the Dover athletic director, Peter Watton, had a family emergency tonight and couldn't be here. So there were some things that he wanted to just mention to the board. Some of the pros that he felt were for Dover. Their new facility, they're creating I can't remember how many square foot weight room that he had mentioned, but it's enormous. And, he mentioned that our kids would be welcome to work out there, not just in the fall, but all seasons, the football kids. He mentioned the HUT program. Was hoping that you would remember the HUT program that was spoken about at the forum last week, and just the proximity of Dover to Oyster River. He felt like that was a big advantage to have them right down the street, and they're putting in a brand new turf field. So again, I want to make sure that I'm not advocating for one school or the other. I just wanted to make sure that I pass that on for him.
Great, thanks, Andy. Yep. And thank you for all the work you've done on this. We really appreciate it. Okay, so I wonder if we could have a motion to go forward with one of the schools, and we have a chance to talk under a motion, okay?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve a cooperative agreement with Portsmouth High School.
Okay. Moved by Al, is there a second? Second by Dan.
Okay, so my thought process on this is that it's not just, by the way, the athletic part, it's the academic part. The change in start time, one of the breakthroughs that really occurred is we had a meeting with Portsmouth High School, and it was during that meeting that we actually talked about combining the bus routes in the afternoon, and that really allowed us to move the start time forward. So I think philosophically, there was a real connection between Portsmouth and Oyster River, so I think that's important. Second of all, we have put in place the cooperative agreement with hockey. And as I mentioned before, I think, while the fit and the safety of the kids going forward and that we approve is really my paramount criteria of which to pick. And I think, when I looked at the numbers, what concerns me with Dover is the decline that has occurred. And it looks like the decline in participation. And I'm not sure why that's occurred. But I look at Portsmouth and it's been more stable. And so adding our group of kids to Portsmouth, my hope is that they have, again, appropriate levels that all the kids can participate, that they aren't sidelined, that they actually can play in games, but it's at an appropriate level. And so, I think that is the spirit of really good coaching, and I think that meshes well with us. I realize it's more difficult for the parents. I know you have to drive to Portsmouth. I know coming back from Portsmouth until whenever they widen it appropriately, it's a problem. But I just think that it's a better fit for us.
Other discussion?
I'll just
Denise?
Yeah, to me, I think either would work very well. Certainly, I hear the advantages to Dover. But for me, I think it's mostly that we already have a cooperative agreement with Portsmouth. So we have that experience and knowing how that works with Portsmouth, as well as the fact that they, been in discussion with us about this for a couple of years now. So, but certainly, I could see either program as being a good, opportunity for our kids, but I can certainly support Portsmouth for sure.
Okay. Yeah?
I agree with everything you've said. Again, I don't think there's a bad option here. I think it's just a matter of choosing the best. The start time issue, the alignment on that, and I think Portsmouth's interest in working with us on a football cooperative, in addition to the hockey cooperative, is longer standing. When we asked the question, is anyone else interested, when we looked at this last year, the answer was no. So at that time, Dover was not interested in working with us. So, I think that's a better relationship, and I think we heard in public comment tonight that there is some level of preference among the football community, the Oyster River football community, for Portsmouth, the familiarity, it sounds like. So I just think it's the logical choice.
Okay. Brian?
Can I ask Coach Pafford a question, or can we bring him up for, is he here? I saw him here. Oh, there he is. Just, you play in field turf, right?
We do.
And would they have the option to use your weight room, just as Dover had mentioned, or?
The weight room is open every day. We have a coach in there 4 days a week, and it's open from 3:30 till 5 right now.
Okay.
So if we have to make something happen, somebody a little bit later, that's what we have to do.
Okay.
So that's not an issue.
And I think you had mentioned too, you have trainers that, do they travel with you, I believe?
We have a trainer from Access that travels to all football games. If for some reason he can't go, Access send us somebody else.
Okay. And
which is the same with Dover, by the way. It's not.
JV and varsity, or do you have a freshman team as well?
We actually currently have a reserve team, which is freshmen and sophomores. The hope was, with this cooperative agreement, that we would have a full JV freshman team. And our freshmen and JV in the past, when we've had that, our philosophy is every kid plays. When we get to the varsity level, that's when we're playing a little bit more kids to win. But at the freshman and JV level, it's to develop for them to get to the varsity level.
Okay. Questions I have?
Yep. Can you just tell me what the difference between a reserve and a freshman team is?
It's just terminology that was used for probably 5 or 6 years ago, when some older kids were playing at a, quote, freshman level, and it was just a place so no one would get cut and it actually started with our soccer team. So there were some juniors and seniors who weren't good enough to make varsity, but they wanted to keep playing, so they kept them on a reserve team.
Right.
For us, it is freshmen and sophomores.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Further discussion on this motion? Hearing none. The motion is to move forward with an agreement with Portsmouth. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 6 in favor, the student rep in favor. So we have a motion to move forward with a cooperative agreement with Portsmouth. And my understanding, the sense of this is that the athletic director would move as quickly as possible to see that agreement is set, which we will then sign, or I will sign, whoever needs to sign it. Is that understanding? Okay.
Andy, will you keep the board? So one of the things that came out in the forum is the fact that we are entering into an official conversation with the NHIAA late in the game. And I think it's important for the parents and for the school board to be kept abreast of that conversation so that we know, even at each board meeting, where it stands. Just give us a couple minutes and keep the parents informed so that we don't have any surprises. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry, there's no more, I'm sorry. Okay.
End of the meeting, public comment.
There'll be public comments, you would hang around, just sorry. So moving forward to the announcements, commendations, and comments from the district.
Can I just remind everyone that tomorrow night we have a community dinner? Sign-ups are a little behind what they usually are, but Doris just asked me to remind everyone tomorrow from 5 to 6:30, $7 a person, $15 for a family, and she's serving spaghetti or ziti with a choice of meat sauce made with local grass-fed beef, tasty marinara, or chicken broccoli alfredo, along with warm garlic breadsticks, fresh tossed salad with assorted dressing, and brownie and vanilla ice cream. So please, join us.
And following that community dinner is a middle school music performance.
I'd just like to remind everybody that next Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, we have a celebratory reception for Dr. Morse in honor of his being named Superintendent, New Hampshire Superintendent of the Year. We did get a nice call at the SAU office yesterday morning, and Commissioner Edelblu has asked if he could come and say a couple of words. So the Commissioner of Ed is going to be at the reception on Thursday.
Great.
Thank you.
And it won't snow.
I can't promise anything.
The comments from the district, from the board? Al?
I just have one, actually, and I don't know where to put this. We are scheduled to have that strategic plan meeting the 31st, and I forwarded, there was one of the Durham town councilors had asked to see the 5-year strategic plan, and I think it would be a really good idea is everybody who's going to that meeting, we send it their packet that they have the 5-year plan so they can look it over.
Sure, it's on the webpage. So
Just remind them.
I can send it out as an attachment if you want.
That'd be great.
Denise?
I had the opportunity to be a judge for the National History Day, and that was really a very interesting experience. Boy, did I appreciate, first of all, the teachers that have to go through all this grading every day. It was hard to do because the kids did such an excellent job, and I want to especially thank Kathy Pierce, the librarian, for coordinating it all, and I really appreciated that opportunity to do that.
Okay. Others? Kenny?
I just was wondering with Andy here if he could comment about the public request to have the unified basketball coach be something that gets a stipend.
I wonder if we could just put that with the motion to approve the lists.
I just don't know if Andy was going to stay for the whole meeting.
So there is a process that we have to use in relation to our negotiated agreement with the teachers. So if a stipend is going to be added, there's a process that we have to engage in with the guild in order to add that stipend. So we can't do it unilaterally.
No, I was just asking Andy to comment on his thoughts about
Oh, okay.
that. I was just hoping to hear another side of the story.
Yeah, I mean, right now, there is no official stipend in the salary schedule for the unified coaches. I think it's unified as a relatively new to New Hampshire, I think within the last 5 years or so. So I'm not sure that it was ever worked. Yeah, sure.
Sorry. Just because I was at the high school when that was started. The unified program started with the Special Olympics getting involved, and they actually funded coaching and stipends up front to get programs started. And that funding has now dried up, and so we have been funding it. And Andy can talk about how we've been funding it, but it doesn't exist on our salary schedule for stipends.
Yeah, I paid Alex out of my officials line in my budget as a game worker. So it's not that he was not paid at all. He has been paid. I will say that we should probably take a look at getting that unified, in the salary schedule, that unified coach. I would not say that the time commitment is as much as a varsity coach. They practice twice a week or maybe once a week and play 7 to 8 games. So I would not put it on that same time commitment level. Certainly there are a lot more challenges that they could potentially face than a varsity coach as well. So I just wouldn't put it in the same time commitment level.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy. So maybe just to ask if we could have that looked into and maybe bring something to the board at an appropriate time.
Yep, I will do that, Kenny. Thank you.
Other board comments? Okay, district reports, Assistant Superintendent.
A couple of quick announcements, and I want to talk about the memo that I included in your packet. First announcement is that for K through 5 parents, they should be looking for, I'll be sending out an email first of next week. The mid-year progress reports will be becoming available at 4 o'clock next Friday, the 26th. So the portal will open so parents can see the progress reports. So anyway, I'll send out instructions on that, and as always, Sue Johnson and myself will be available for tech support with any parents that are struggling with getting access to those, but we are at the middle point of the school year. The memo that I included in your packet, I did talk about this at the last board meeting, and I promised you I'd follow up with a memo, so I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on the first couple of parts, but I'll review it with you real quick. It's regarding the school calendar. One of the things I wanted you to understand is that our calendar fully meets all the minimum state requirements. Minimum state requirements for an hour-based calendar are 990 hours of instruction at the middle and high school level, 945 hours of instruction at the elementary level. The way we build our calendar, we far exceed that. The middle school calendar has 1,068 built into it, and the high school has 1,056. The difference of that is simply the passing time that's built into the day over the course of the year at the high school. That's why it's a little bit shorter, but still we're 66 hours above the minimum standard at the high school and 78 at the middle school. The other thing that's required in building the calendar is that you build in 5 snow days, which we do, and coincidentally, today was number 5. So we have used those 5. But it also requires that you build in an additional 30 hours or 5 days of other time that you could use for instructional purposes. That would include things like teacher workshop days and that sort of thing. And we have 7 teacher professional days, theoretically, that could become instructional. And we can talk about whether or not the March and May teacher workshop days should be converted to instructional days as a way to reclaim some of that lost instructional time. Bottom line is, one of the things that we hear a lot in the community whenever we have a snow day is that we're still in the paradigm of that sort of 1 for 1. We lost a day, we got to make up a day. We are now on the hours calculation, and it allows us more flexibility than we have historically used. So ultimately, it is a board discretion decision as long as we've met minimum standards. As I mentioned at the last board meeting, I'm not advocating for minimums by any means. I think Oyster River has made a name for itself by always trying to be exceptional, and so I'm not in any way saying let's just do 990 hours and stop there, but please know that that's what the state is looking for when it comes to approving our calendar, and we fully follow all of those guidelines, and we actually have some flexibility there. The part that's new tonight is the last section, which talks about the requirements regarding blizzard bags, because I know a number of times the topic of blizzard bags has come up, and I wanted to kind of explain to you how that process would work if we were to pursue it. It is a pretty, it does have some fairly strict standards that have to be followed. Blizzard bags was really introduced at a time when we were still on for schools on the day calendar, meaning 180 days. And so typically blizzard bags, it was a matter of checking that box to say, okay, you lost a day, you do a blizzard bag day to make up that lost day. So the paradigm is shifted somewhat when you get into the hours calculation, so it's really on us to kind of take a look at that. What is required to have a blizzard bag program? Number one, we have to propose a plan that goes to this commissioner who would have to approve it. That plan can be used for up to 5 maximum days. The key things that you have to do, though, is you have to set up a system that guarantees access to all students on those days of implementation. So it's not enough to say, well, we're doing an online lesson. You have to have a plan for, like, the kids that are not able to access the internet. And quite honestly, when many times we've not had school, it's because we've lost power. So you have to have a plan in place that will address that. So that's one piece. The other thing that you have to do is you have to, teachers can't passively be involved. It can't be take this work home and do it, come back to school tomorrow, pass it, and I'll grade it. Teachers have to be available to provide instruction on those days of implementation, whether it's by computer, by phone, by smoke signals, whatever the system requires, but they have to be available to provide that instruction. So that's a component. And within it, you are required to have professional development around the notion of remote learning. It may seem like a simple concept of, like, just put some lessons online and make it happen, but how to make them valuable, because one of the standards of blizzard bags is the experience has to be equal in rigor to a school day. And so how do you verify that? And that's a challenging thing to do. The final component of it is when all is said and done with each individual blizzard bag day, you have to verify that 80% of the kids fully participated in it, which obviously, if you look at it district-wide, we have 2,100 kids. That means you have to identify that 1,680 kids fully completed and participated in the experience. Sharing a personal feeling about this, I think the notion of online learning and remote learning is a great educational concept, and it's one that we should embrace as a district. And I think you'll find that lots of our teachers are already doing lots of really cool things with flipped classrooms and all kinds of innovative ideas. To use it in the blizzard bag format before we really have fully embraced it as an instructional strategy falls into the category of just checking a box to say, yep, we did it. And I think the discretion exists for the board to take a look at the hours calculation and make a decision at some point close to the end of the year in terms of when is the last day of school going to be, as long as we meet all those minimum requirements. And the amount of clerical and organizational work to make a blizzard bag system work, I think it would be, I think the benefit to the district might not be as much as the time and energy involved in making it happen. Just my personal opinion. However, it is something that we could pursue, but again, it would require a plan to be developed and put into place. Any questions you might have?
Denise?
Just a comment, which is, to me, the part that makes no sense whatsoever is the whole, when you have a huge storm, one of the side effects of that is to lose your electricity, and I don't know about anybody else, but we lose our internet at our house. Now, it's true, I still have my phone, but my phone doesn't work anywhere near as well as my computer, and certainly trying to do any kind of assignments on a phone, it just doesn't really make sense. And then to say, well, then students can go out somewhere to get access to a place that has internet is foolish, because that's the whole reason we are not having school, is we don't want everyone to be out on the roads to try and find some place where they would have access to internet. So I think as you described, we have other options. We can either go with, okay, we're over the minimum, and so we're just not going to worry about it, or we can take a teacher workshop day or whatever, and I think those are much better options. That's my feeling about it.
Kenny?
Two comments or questions. So I understand all of this about the blizzard bag, but then maybe trying to separate meeting requirement for hours or days with learning, because the two are very different. And certainly if we're using blizzard bags as a way to try to replace lost hours and quantify that and make that okay with the state system, I understand that. But I think there's also that other point about knowing we live in New Hampshire, there's going to be a lot of days without school, and that's a lot of lost learning opportunity. And somehow, short of formal blizzard bags, having teachers provide some really kind of stimulating things for kids to do on those days or 2 days in a row without school, I think would be very valuable. And it doesn't have to be requirement tied, but I think if we start to look at it more as stimulation and learning rather than requirement, we're better off.
Yep.
And the second question I have, and I don't know if you or Dr. Morse, we know how many hours the kids need. What happens with our staff and teachers and our guild contracts as far as hours, days, and what does that mean for our employees?
So what we did this past school year is the teachers still met their contractual obligation by coming in on Monday and Tuesday of the last week of June. We did that, quite frankly, because we weren't prepared for 7 days being lost, and here we are again this year with 5 days. So that can become a much more flexible option. We actually experimented because nobody anticipated being out 7 days. I knew that there would be staff that would come forward and say, I've made this commitment, I'm taking this course, I put my money down for vacation, my airline tickets are there, there's a reunion of my family in Utah, that kind of stuff. And I anticipated all of that and worked with the Guild to make sure that those staff members were held to their contract by coming in and working those 2 days in the summertime. It's very possible that having done that as basically an exception last year, it's very possible to generate that kind of concept district-wide. So, for example, Todd does the whole basically what I call research and development in the summertime, where our teachers come in and they get paid to work on projects that are different from their classroom assignments or to enhance a program. And, we spend several thousands of dollars in the summertime. So if we carried the concept forward from last spring and said, well, let's develop this for all 200 teachers, then I think what would happen is two things. I think our teachers would appreciate it, and they'd be motivated to put together proposals, much like Todd gets from about 1/3 of the staff, but we'd get it from the whole staff. So I think that if we got more creative, I think we could deal with holding people accountable to the contract, but also making sure the district benefits in a way that is more meaningful, because summertime, our teachers really get inventive and innovative, and they really start thinking about things differently. So I see there's an opportunity here. It's sort of like, if you're given lemons, can you make lemonade? And I see that as part of the way we could approach the staff in the future.
Good. Because I think that makes so much more sense than having people just show up in due time. And instead, it's good for the district, but it's also good for all of our professionals.
And I would also add those last 2 days of the year, you know, our staff truly was amazing, and surely there were people who would wish they didn't have to be there, but the quality of the work that we got out of them those 2 days was pretty amazing. So I don't want to sidestep the good work the teachers did, but I think we can still get that good work by looking at it differently, looking at time differently.
Yeah, if I could just add a couple of thoughts. Our contract for teachers used to say 180 instructional days and 5 teacher professional days. It no longer defines, it just says 185 work days, so there is that flexibility in terms of how that is played out. The other thing I wanted to just comment on, Ken, all of our teachers, or many of our teachers, are really working and experimenting with the uses of technology and creating learning experiences that can take place outside the classroom. And I think you're absolutely right. The idea of creating opportunities for kids to be able to engage in something when there's a break in learning for whatever the reason might be, can be very useful. At the elementary grades, there's a number of the Reflex Math comes to mind as a computer program that they use for a lot of teaching of math skills. And actually, it's one of those very motivating kind of things that kids are constantly asking to be able to use it. And so many of the kids do that at home as out of choice. So there's that. And then there's also, like I said, a number of teachers that are experimenting with different types of classroom structures that are, the flipped classroom, which is basically where the teacher does a videotape of themselves teaching a lesson, and then the kids are given the lesson, they can view it from home, and then there might be a task that they're going to perform when they come back, as opposed to the other way around, where you give them a homework assignment where they don't have the instruction yet, and then they come into class and they try to learn from the experience they had without having the instructor having taught the lesson. So there's a lot of those things going on. So there's absolutely a lot of thinking going on as to how do we extend the learning environment. I think if you look at the whole notion of extended learning opportunities and competencies as a concept, it's really an embracing of a much bigger picture, that learning doesn't just happen between 8:15 and 3:05 every day, that you can depending on the rate in which you process and learn, one person might learn a concept much faster or slower than another person. And so being able to take that into account in how teachers plan their lessons. So a long-winded answer, Ken, but I think that we're already started to head down that road. And I think it's one that whether or not we had embraced blizzard bags, we should be thinking about ways to kind of extend that learning and opportunities for that to happen.
Great. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple then.
I just had my point with this was like, look at the numbers. The one that's really close is the elementary school right now. I mean, it's within 5 hours, I think, something like that, which is one day. It's pretty tight. So and we're heading into February, and I mean, we do get snow in February. So when I thought about this, I mean, the thought keeps coming up about blizzard bags, but what we really need to look at likely, and that's what Jim is kind of alluding to, is the teacher workshop, providing more flexibility in the teacher workshop. I mean, we don't want to turn the teacher workshop into the blizzard bag, which is the 2 extra days. So you have to have, I think, moving forward next year when we schedule those second half workshops, you have to have some flexibility in how we address that, because you may theoretically need to use that time, or if you're not going to do that, live with the consequence that we're going to extend the school year.
Right. And for the record, I'm in no way suggesting we shouldn't use all 5 of our snow days and extend school to the 5th scheduled snow day, because you're absolutely right. That would put the elementary school very, very close to being under standard. My memo, I talk about the idea that, if we assume that we're going to utilize those 5 days, obviously we've already done that. Now the question is, do we convert the PD days? And if we did do that, if we got, let's just say, 2 more snow days before the end of the winter, we would still be able to get there. And at some point, the conversation has to happen, okay, look, we got to lock and load on when the end of the school year is, and I know Suzanne is going to be coming in here very shortly saying, please let me schedule graduation because I need to book a venue at UNH, and that has an impact on sort of how all of this plays out. So being able to, because frankly, I think what the community gets frustrated with is the fluidity and the uncertainty of like, when is the last day going to be? And if the paradigm of we're going to add a day for every day that we use, if we get 5 more snow days, people are thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to be going until June 28th or whatever. And if we can make the determination earlier, that's what people are really clamoring for. And from what the emails that I'm seeing, that's what people are clamoring for.
Brian, you had something?
It was just along what Al said. I mean, you only have 34 hours to play with for the elementary school. We have 78 hours to play with for middle school and high school. So that
I would point out, though, that 34 hours at the elementary school is 6 school days.
Yes, 5.5 instead of 6 hours.
I mean, do we ever get in a position where the elementary school is not getting enough hours, but the high school and middle school are good? Can we ever get errors? If they
typically, the place that most of the focus is on is the secondary level. It's high schools, it's graduations. That's where the most focus is on. And if the high school meets that level, the elementary schools are going to as well.
Can I just add to that, that if we used all of our snow days and we converted our PD days to student days, and we used up those extra hours, we're not going to be the only ones in the state in that situation. And that's happened in the past where school districts across the state have exceeded the number of days, and what happens at that point is virtually every school board in the state asks the state to create an exemption for that school year. So if we end up in a really severe situation, we'll have a lot of company.
Caroline, did you have something?
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask, have you talked to staff about starting blizzard bags or gotten their opinions on it at all?
We've had informal conversation, but no, it hasn't been proposed as a concept for staff to weigh in on. Some staff think it's a great idea. Those that are fully already doing things that would be very conducive to it. But no, we haven't had a formal conversation as a staff about it.
The union has had the conversation on my behalf, Hannah, and it usually breaks down elementary, high school, elementary, more interested, high school, less interested.
And you'd have to have everybody buy into it, right? You'd have to have 80% of people buy into it. Yeah. There's also the question of, do you know when a blizzard's going to come, right?
Well, we're pretty good. Jim is pretty good at predicting.
Yeah, okay. One more, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, first of all, Todd. I appreciate it. Just for my own knowledge, it's been great, and I appreciate the effort you put into it. Conceptually, I, presently support what we're doing, which is not utilizing blizzard bags. I mean, at some point in the future, perhaps it's a better fit for us. I think there is a need to somehow state the district's position on blizzard bags, though.
Yes.
And so I had suggested a while back that perhaps the board should state its position. I've thought about that. I think it's probably more effective to have the administration.
Yes. In fact, Dr. Morse and I discussed that right after the last meeting, and I wanted to make sure you guys had this information before I then started.
Okay.
But I have a draft of an email prepared to send out to the community to give them an explanation of blizzard bags. For me to state a position, I guess I would probably need to have the board establish one.
Maybe I would describe it as explain a practice.
Well, yeah, that was what I was intending to do, is explain what a blizzard bag is, how our calendars function, and why blizzard bags do not mesh with our
And I think that's probably what we're going for. And I would ask that, in addition to the email, if we could find a way to put it on the website. And I'm not sure exactly where the right place is, to be honest with you. And maybe we look at doing some sort of a FAQ page at some point. It would be useful for the board to have the ability to point to that.
Good point.
People might find it on their own, or if we get the question, we can just, provide a link and say,
Right after a snowstorm, we could just put a link right there on the revolving window.
Put it in the announcement.
Check it out.
Yeah. I think people just realize how complex it is, because I think people might think it's just a simple thing. And obviously, there's all kinds of requirements and complexity to doing it.
Right. And I think it's a question of, do you do it as just superficially to claim a day, or are you trying to create a learning environment that's positive for kids? And I think that's the struggle.
Michael?
Just a real quick question. What if we, assuming we did have more school cancellations this school year due to weather, and the board didn't take any action, what's the default? Is the default that we continue to add days one-to-one, or is the default that there's some other administrative action that happens at some point?
There is no default because you guys control the calendar. So if we step into it and use up all of our time, then we're going to turn to you and immediately say, my first recommendation would be to grab onto the March and May workshop days and grab those before we do anything else. I mean, we've done that in the past. Convert them into student seat days.
In the old days, people would have said apply for a waiver, but I think what has happened in the recent years is the Commissioner's office is overwhelmed with people applying for waivers, and so they've tried to create a structure that allows for that local control, and as long as we're meeting minimum standards, we have to report every year what we have done to meet minimum standards, and so that would be what we would need to do. So the waiver is, what used to be called the waiver is basically a board decision to determine how many hours we want to make sure to ensure.
So the bottom line is we have a fail-safe because we could shorten by several days, the school year by several days and still meet the minimum hours. Whether we want to do it or not, but we have that option, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and I think people don't realize that we have that option.
And actually, just one quick thing about this year's calendar is the fifth snow day is a Thursday. So the Friday, the 22nd, there's also that option too, is you're not extending into the following week, you're just finishing out the week that was there. So that's potentially an option in addition to the 2 workshop days that Jim talked about.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Todd.
Superintendent's report?
Really quickly, I just want to let you know that I've reached out to all stakeholders in terms of the strategic plan, counselors and the select boards of Lee and Madbury, as well as this group will meet on the 31st at 7 o'clock here. The administrative team will meet at 3:30 in, I think it's Suzanne's conference room, right? And then the maintenance and SAU will meet on the 31st at 1 o'clock. We sent out over 80 invitations to the community. Feedback so far has been really good. I was looking for 50. If we end up with 70 plus, then instead of having 2 community groups, I'll just turn it into 3 community groups. So feedback's been really good. The Guild is generating names from the teachers unit. The para educator unit is generating names. The custodian bus drivers are generating names for their groups. So by the middle of February, we'll have surveyed all the major stakeholders in the district. And would probably be someplace in the avenue of nearly 200 participants. And 5 years ago, we were thrilled to have 100. So doing it this way, we've really increased the number of voices that we'll hear contributing to our next strategic plan. So I'm pretty excited by that.
And the 31st will be here?
31st is here.
Okay.
Yep.
Business administrator?
So we have all of our forms ready for posting. I just need a motion to approve them and signatures so we can move forward for a deliberative session. Okay.
So you have essentially 4 motions to approve things that we've already approved before, is that correct?
Yes, but this is your official approval. Your official, after your public hearing, you have to officially bless the budget moving forward.
I'm just wondering whether we could approve the fiscal year budget for deliberative session, the default budget, the warrant articles, and MS 26 as a block, because we've already approved every one of those things individually.
Yes,
Unless people have problems and want to separate those, we could do that as a block.
Sure, that's fine.
Are people okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, could I have the motion?
So moved.
Okay. Moved by Al to approve those 4 items as a block. Is there a second?
I'll
Second by Denise. I'm sorry, what?
It's the fiscal year 19 budget, the default budget, the warrant articles, and the MS-26.
Okay. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on these? Hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in favor, the student rep in favor, so all of those motions are approved. And we have to do a signing right now?
Yes, and please note that your name is actually typed.
Okay. Is it one signature?
One signature on each form, so I don't have 3 copies of each.
Are these the forms we're supposed to be signing? You have, so these are just copies for me.
Okay.
I'll keep them out of circulation.
Can I borrow a pen?
Yes, sir.
Should we go on, or should we just wait till we sign?
I think you can go on.
Okay. The student center report. Sorry.
Yes, there's not a lot going on right now since it is finals week. I assume most students are very excited to start second semester because I know I am. We have a lot of awesome classes at the school. I'm excited to get to take them. It's my last semester. And then lots of students are very excited because the snowball dance is on Friday at 7:30 in the multipurpose room. We're selling tickets for $10. We've been selling them since the end of since break ended. For $10, and right now we're selling them during finals week, in between finals, and then after school. They'll be $12 at the door, and a student is performing at the dance as well, which is attracting a lot of people to come. So we're all very excited for that.
Awesome.
Second. Okay, moving on to the second discussion item. Dr. Morse, you might be able to give some background on this. My understanding is that there is a teacher group from the high school that's investigating the homework issue, and that one thing we might do tonight is to frame some questions that might guide their deliberations so they could come back to us, you know, kind of having responses to those questions. Is that correct?
I think that would be helpful. I know that, Suzanne, if you wanted to come to the podium and just give the board an update on where the committee is. Along with her master schedule committee, she's had a homework committee as well as other committees going on, and we know that the board wanted a workshop on homework, and I thought it would be helpful for the committee to hear the board's questions, because they haven't heard the board's questions, only that they wanted homework to be on the agenda. But can you give us a sense of where the committee is at this point?
So at this point, the committee has met about 3 or 4 times. Much of their focus has been around questions that they have, and they have been reading a book called Rethinking Homework. And so they've been discussing the book, some of the concepts and ideas inside the book as well. So that is where they are. We have talked in our administrative team about homework, about the schedule, and the questions that we have now moving forward to structure some school-wide practices that would support kids moving into this block schedule. And so that's the next step, to have that conversation with faculty.
Great. So do you think it would be helpful for the committee to hear what the board's questions are that would help them inform their recommendations to the board?
Definitely.
Okay.
Just even before, is this being looked at the middle school level as well, or just the high school?
It's really been a high school-driven issue. It hasn't percolated up to the middle school or down to the middle school as heavily. If there was a homework issue at the middle school, it's most likely going to be grade 8, but unlike the high school, the middle school, I'm not getting the same kind of noise at a very loud level that we're getting from the high school. I think it's mostly a high school issue.
Yeah, one of the things which we'll also talk about at the homework forum would be the data we collected on the issue of homework. We surveyed teachers, parents, and students, and the data does definitely support the notion that really homework is a very low-level concern through at least 7th grade, and it first starts to percolate up as being a concern in 8th grade. So we're taking a look at why that is and what is happening in 8th grade. If I were going to theorize, it would be that's when kids first are exposed to some high school level type courses, being algebra and world language that translates into a high school credit. But yeah, the data is definitely showing us that the level of concern where people are reporting the stress and anxiety, it's happening from 8th grade on up, and so that's really where we're focusing.
Can I just add, I can appreciate that being the short-term strategy. I guess the way I've been thinking of our look at homework is more to understand its purpose, its value. I'm not sure that we want to stop investigating just because we're not hearing a lot of concern, and maybe that's just me. But I think my feeling is that what we'll learn from the look at the high school will inform what we look for and how we look for it, perhaps at the other schools. And I mean, I wouldn't even rule out the elementary school, because I think it's a worthwhile exercise to really review something that's very broad-based, impacts all of our students, and you know, to at least learn that it's doing what we want it to do.
And absolutely, I think you're right. The other component, which I think is worth noting, is that at the middle school, they're really embracing the competency-based assessment, and they're looking at different forms of assessment, and they've already established practices where homework does not count in any way in the grading, and all of those kind of concepts that are already in place. So they are addressing it. So I wouldn't want to leave you with the idea that it has been ignored.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So I'll start with a basic question, which actually follows with what Dan is like. What are you giving as homework? What are you using homework for? And then to add to that is, somebody's done homework. How are you using it the next day? How is it meaningful to the next lesson? And the problem I hear over and over again with homework is there's a thought that it's just busy work. And so how is it meaningful? How are you using it? I mean, is it more than just, I did something, I turn it in, you do it, you give a check mark on it? I think it should have a higher standard than that. The next question, too, is it has to do with are teachers aware of what other teachers are giving for homework? Because the problem is, at the high school, we have a large percentage of kids who are taking 7 classes. If everybody's giving them 30 minutes of homework, they got a lot of homework. So how do we better coordinate what's going on with the other students' classes?
One question I had that was something I had to deal with as a teacher is, how do you assess the amount of time that the homework that you're assigning takes? Because I'll just give it an example. Like, you know, I often would assume that my students could read, say if I assigned a novel, maybe 35 pages an hour, which is about the pace that I read at. But then I checked, and some were reading at like 20 pages an hour, 15. And so I was really assigning much more time than I thought I was. And so I think that there's a kind of audit, you know, how much time does your homework take? You know, have kids keep time logs, you know, just to see, because you could, you know, and for some kids, it may be taking far more time than you really would want it to take, and so maybe you might want to talk to that kid, say, like, you're a more deliberate kid, you know, let's make some adjustments. But I think it's easy, I don't mean to go on, but it's easy to think that you're assigning a moderate bit of homework, but for some kids it's not moderate, and so how do you monitor that? Kenny?
I think when I asked the question about whether it was happening with middle school or other levels, and then the resulting conversation, I think that really summarizes a lot of what I feel. I don't think it's just a high school problem, and I speak from experience of looking at my daughter and her friends and how much busy work they did even in elementary school, which was just exponentially increased through middle school, and they tolerated it. And I look at homework, I think what we really want homework to be is instructional. We want it to further engage learning. We want it to be something that's a positive experience because we want to keep that love of learning going. So I think the questions, and maybe I'll just reiterate some, is really trying to get an idea from teachers, how many days of the week are they assigning homework? On average, how much time do they think that homework is taking? Is there coordination between subjects so that, just again, remembering my daughter's experience, there would be weeks where there'd be, not much going on, and then the next week, everybody had something going on, and if that could be spread out, that would be easier. I think that the whole reason is trying to look into what a teacher thinks is the goal of the homework, and then how is that homework used to advance learning? And I think as Tom said, or maybe Al, is it just checked off? Or is that homework really looking at one, this individual maybe needs some help with concepts, or two, the class needs help with concepts, and therefore as a teacher, I didn't convey what I needed to convey. So I think this is district-wide, and I think it really encompasses really trying to understand why homework is being assigned and where we're going with the homework, how that homework is being utilized to make it part of a positive learning experience.
And kind of to build off what Kenny is saying, and this, I just put this out as a hypothesis, it's certainly true at the university level, is that homework tends to be backloaded in a semester or in a term. That you start out slow, you build, and then you have all the big projects come in at the end at the same time. You have your tests, you have your papers, you have almost everything due at the end, and whether a more rational schedule is to do more front-loading so the work is spread out over a term. Because I think often, university, almost hardly anything's demanded at the first 2-3 weeks, and then it builds and builds and builds. And I'm not sure that's a great model, because I think it leads to that train wreck at the end of the semester or end of the term. So that would be a question I would ask. So can you get more done earlier and spread it out? Because I think if everybody's doing that, you're gonna have just this blizzard of work at the end. Yeah.
This is the other one. I know you don't have the answer to this one too, because it's a committee that's in process. But how can homework be used diagnostically in conjunction with the advisory period? And that means that if you begin to see somebody's having trouble with something and it's not the whole class, that you can use the advisory period instead of the normal thing is, hey, I can come in at school starts at 8:15, I'll come in at 8. How can we use that time within the day to actually have a recovery or instructional thing that's tailored to the student's need?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And along those lines, I think, the advisory or study skills, kind of a time management of their homework, because a lot of times people don't understand or know how they can manage it. I always, prioritized my projects that I had, and I could spend this much time here. When I was playing football, I had to make sure I had enough time after football to do it. And it's just, to me, it just seems like a real stress inducer for a lot of kids, is, because they don't know how to manage that workload, no matter how small or big it is, because everyone's different in how they deal with it. But if they, as part of maybe, I don't know if it's something they already do in advisory or through study skills, as far as managing that time to better complete what they have. Mm-hmm. If you have free time now, rather than spending free time watching TV, how about getting ahead on your homework because it's due in 2 days?
Mm-hmm. Jane, I'm really curious what your thoughts are on this. You're right in there, right?
Well, I think your idea on having some students keep like a homework log would be really interesting to kind of see what different students who are at different levels are kind of getting for homework. But I do think a key part that kind of plays into that and has up stress levels throughout the years is cell phones. Because I know I get very easily distracted by my cell phone, and I know lots of other students do too, which really takes a big part into homework. I could read a packet in 5 minutes if I read fast enough, but if I check my phone 3 times, then it's going to take me 10 minutes, and then that kind of piles on. See you laughing at me, but it's true. It's very true. You probably saw it.
I have kids.
We do the same thing.
So I know that a lot of people have a lot of trouble with keeping off of their cell phone, so that would play in part in a homework log and kind of adds into stress levels as well. And then I think also just with the in middle school versus high school, I know middle school you have 5 teachers and they all work together as a team, so they can kind of talk, whereas high school, like, and even with what you guys have been saying about teachers kind of talking, like, my A period teacher has like 20 kids, and all those 20 kids have different B period teachers. Like, it's a lot to try to figure that out. And I know a lot of teachers are very understanding of like other teachers' workloads that they have, that other students have, and are willing to push deadlines and let kids have extensions on work. And a lot of teachers are also open to feedback as to whether, like, when you get a reading, you write a reflection on it after you read it. And then you usually talk about the reading that you read at night in class, so it like benefits the class. And teachers are very open to say, if you say this reading really didn't have an impact on me and I really don't think it was impactful to the class and didn't help me learn, they're very open to take the feedback and acknowledge it, which is nice.
Great.
Yes, just to speak again, I think what Brian and Hannah said, I mean, point out something, there's kind of that, there's that time management, the habit of study, the habit of homework. And it's something, unfortunately or fortunately, it's not our role. We're not really going to be able to shepherd someone turning off their smartphone or watching TV or doing something. But I think our role is just ensuring that the homework is really a productive experience, that it's really learning, it's utilized correctly, the feedback that's garnered from it is used to inform more instruction, and that the load is appropriate. And I think that's all we can do, but I think we can do a better job now than we're doing by just riding along. I think by really looking at it and assessing it, maybe we could find out what we're doing right, what we might be able to do better, and improve that homework model.
Yeah.
I generally agree with that, but I do think, you know, having had 2 kids well, one of my kids is in 5th grade and the other just completed 5th grade last year, I was really impressed by what the teachers did in terms of teaching good time management skills to the kids utilizing homework, and how much time and effort they spent really gradually walking them through good time management processes. You know, I didn't really anticipate that going in, and I was really impressed with how much they focused on it as a priority. So I do think there's an element of teaching time management skills, but I think that's different for everyone, and I don't think there's one right answer. You know, sitting here listening to everyone's thoughts, which are really insightful, I want us to perhaps look at maybe one of our elemental goals in this as really challenging assumptions and the culture of homework in terms of, you know, I hear and I've read a fair amount about homework. Anecdotally, I've heard stories where, you know, teachers try to cut back on homework and they get a lot of negative feedback from parents. Challenging assumptions one way or another. Homework is necessarily good or it's necessarily bad, and really trying to cut through a lot of that by being able to better substantiate what it's for and why it's valuable, and really looking at it through the lens of the student's experience, finding ways to evaluate not just the time spent, but the energy invested and the impact on life outside of school. I think that's a lot of what we have been hearing is how impactful homework is on the lives of our students and their families, you know, and how much stress and anxiety it's causing. So those, I think, are some of the things to keep in the back of our minds as we figure out what questions to ask, where to look, what systems to apply, and what to measure.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
So one of the other discussions that all these questions are great, and Suzanne and Todd and I will capture them in a way that we can give them to the committee. But we also wanted to lock and load on a workshop day. So in March, our regular meetings are the 7th and the 21st. And we were wondering whether the 14th or the 28th, keeping on a Wednesday. I don't know whether there's a magic to Wednesday, but we tend to do that. So does the 14th or 28th work for the board for a workshop date on homework?
I could do either.
The 14th or the 28th or the?
14th or the 28th?
Either works for me.
Yeah, those are good.
I'm not, I think it's okay, but I have to check. I'm not sure.
Either one is okay, you think?
I think, yeah.
Okay,
But
Michael?
I can let you know tomorrow.
So 14th? 14th? All right, so,
The 28th is winter break week, right?
what's that?
No,
20.
no, he's joking March.
March.
March, I'm sorry.
Yeah, March, not February.
Does that change your answer, Michael?
I don't know what's happening that far ahead.
So how about if I have Wendy do a survey 14th or the 28th, and then we'll lock and load from that result? But it looks like at least they're viable dates to consider.
Yeah. Can I just throw one more question into the hopper? I think an interesting question is, to what extent will the new schedule, particularly with more block days, create space to do work in school with guided help that previously you would do outside of school without guided help? And so like how, it's the intersection of the schedule, and because I think the paradox of homework is if you know how to do it,
You're fine.
you know, it's just reinforcement. If you don't know how to do it, you need help, and your parents might not be able to give that help. So I mean, how could those more frequent blocks create possibilities for shifting work into the school day? So
I think this has been very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Could we move to a motion to approve the list of middle school, high school spring coaches? No?
I'll make a motion to approve the middle school, high school spring coaches and volunteers.
Okay, moved by Al, is there a second? Second by Brian. And I think this was, going back to the earlier discussion, that we'll have some information about the unified coaches and putting those on, you know, I think there's a fairness issue, I think, here.
Yeah, so I'll contact the Guild tomorrow and ask them to sit with me and Andy and talk through what they would, what's the rational stipend for
Logistics.
Yeah, for those positions. There's multiple positions, right, Andy? So there's 3. Yeah.
Okay. So we have motion second, right? Any discussion on the coaches? All in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in favor, the student rep in favor, those stipends are approved. Motion to approve policies. We have 3 policies to approve. Denise?
Yeah, I'll motion to approve them as a slate. Policy ADC, use of tobacco products strictly prohibited. IHCD, advanced coursework. DGD, school district credit cards, procurement cards, or other purchasing cards. And those are actually for, I should look at my thing.
Well, 2 are for first read.
Those are first read.
No, first read or second read?
First read are the advanced placement.
Yeah,
Credit
yeah,
cards.
so
The
they're
tobacco
different,
products
yeah.
is second read.
Second read, so maybe I should split them out then.
Well, unless people have problems, you know. And I think with the second read, it's basically just getting that, was it use and possession, you know, getting that cleared up?
Right.
Right, and it was all sorted out,
So
so.
we sorted it out, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
All right,
so your motion is still as a slate?
Yeah, my motion is still as a slate, but the IHCD and DGD is for first read and ADC is for second read.
Okay. Well, was there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Al. Questions on these? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in favor, the student rep in favor. Okay, move to school board updates, committee updates. Anybody have an update on a committee? No?
Just a comment from the policy committee minutes. There was apparently some discussion about sample policies from comparative districts.
Yeah.
And I know that the parents group that brought the device issue before the board back in, I think, October, has done quite a bit of research on that, and might be beneficial to reach back out to them.
I think it's good. I think we should do our own research on it, but I think it's, yeah. And I think, we had a discussion, because we're saying, like, what do we have to get ready? Because there's surveys, there's this, and so we had a discussion about, getting that started. And so that we can meet, have the information available to the board in time to make that decision. So that was something we talked about in that meeting. Okay.
Not part of committee, but I didn't know where to mention it in the meeting. When we were doing the budget, we did not go ahead and approve the yellow slip, which was the language, and we thought we'd be putting that on hold, seeing what happens with district spending and whether there was monies available, and then we would reconsider that. And if my memory is right, we thought we were having a retirement or someone leaving, and she stayed on, but I think when we were starting to look for someone, it wasn't that easy a find. And I'm wondering if it makes sense, rather than waiting till we're really deep into April, May, or beyond, to look to try to really get a really good projection of where we are for budget, and if we're really looking good, whether we want to revisit that so our backs aren't against the wall if we decide last minute to try to recruit for that position.
Yeah, it would be difficult for us, when Sue is doing her projections, until we truly hit April vacation, all of her numbers are incredibly tentative, and I don't think she nor I would be comfortable in making a recommendation to the board until we knew exactly where we stood in the budget. I also would add, Kenny, that the other place that possibly would come under consideration, if the board wants it to, is when we know what our absolute health insurance number is, because we budgeted that for the new school year. So both of those issues are spring issues, and to push it closer to this timeline where we sit today I wouldn't think it would be prudent yet, just because I know how Sue operates, I know how I operate, and although we project balances, it's really very tentative until we hit April vacation.
Sure. I could accept that then. I just thought I'd ask, but I think your answer is very reasonable. So,
public comment?
Hi, I'm Dean Rubin from Lee. On elementary school homework, I definitely hope you guys look at it. It was a big stressor in our house, and I was surprised how much it varied between teachers. My daughter had a lot of homework, and certainly one year that I can recall, and not others. The other thing I wanted to mention was I couldn't figure out when the filing period to run for school board was from looking on the website. So I don't want to run, and I hope you guys all, whoever's up, runs again and nobody else runs, but I think we should know when that period is, so maybe you can clarify it.
Okay. Okay, we have the list of future meeting dates. I won't go through those.
We had one more public comment.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Hello, Bevy Cadle from Madbury. This is about the tax increase for Madbury. Could you guys give what the calculation is, the actual math equation? And is it normal for the district? Is it normal for the do other districts use the same equation? Thank you.
Bev, could I just invite you to my office and sit with Sue, and if you come out understanding it, would you tell us all how the state does it?
I wrote an article about it. It had partial differential equation.
And I hope you understand derivatives.
Yeah. Well, I think the question was like, why the percentage for Madbury went up, given the fact that the number of students went down. And I still would like to get my hand around, figure out how that could be, because that percentage going up just 0.15% made an increase of about $60,000, and that's part of the increase. And so I think the part of it was like state aid, that makes sense. You have fewer students, you get less state aid. But how that formula worked to their disadvantage is something I think we need to figure out before the deliberative session. So, okay. not to get into the high math of that. Okay, we need to go into non-public session for the superintendent's evaluation. Could I have a motion to go into non-public session?
Under New Hampshire State Law, RSA :91-A:32, I move that we go into non-public session. C, matters which discussed in public would affect the reputation of a person, superintendent's evaluation.
Moved by Kenny, is there a second?
I'll second.
By Dan, roll call.
Dan Klein, yes.
Michael Williams, yes.
Kenny Rotner, yes.
Denise Day, yes.
Tom Newkirk, yes.
Al Holland, yes.
Brian Cisneros, yes.
You can go off and do your homework.